Today, New Zealand in the teeth of the storm. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics from the latest post covering finance and problem news with a distinctively Australian and New Zealand perspective. Well, our thoughts, of course, are with the people of New Zealand who are currently dealing with a national emergency as Cyclone Gabrielle traverses the North Island, creating conditions as bad as many have seen for many years. But we also have another storm, which maybe have been better forecast because house sales plummeted to their lowest level ever in January, excluding the 2020 COVID-19 lockdown period when market activity came to a virtual standstill. That's according to the latest figures from the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand. They reported that just 2,759 residential properties were sold nationally in January. That's down 27% compared to January last year. In fact, that could be the lowest sales figures for any month of the year apart from April 2020. And even in the years immediately following the global financial crisis from 2009 to 2011, when the housing market was in a sustained downturn, January sales remained above 3,000. January is traditionally a slower month as sellers and buyers are on holiday, the REINZ said. This month is no exception, although it's intensified in Auckland by relatively poor weather, with the least number of sales since records began, excluding April 2020, during the country's lockdown at 943 sales. The rest of the country has also seen a record low for the month, with less than 3,000 sales nationally. High interest rates, the ability to secure finance, commentary around the looming recession, and this being election year can be added to factors for slow decisions from buyers. As a result, properties are spending longer on the market, with 53 being the median days to sell. For January 23, that's 16 days longer compared to January 2022. The median sale prices decreased nationally by 13.3% overall to $762,500 and decreased 9.3% for New Zealand, excluding Auckland, to $679,000. The REINZ House Price Index showed an annual decrease of 13.9% in the value of residential property nationwide, which is in line with the sale price changes also seen. Regional median house prices continue to decrease across the board, with Auckland dropping under $1 million to $940,000 in January for the first time in 2 years. Wellington, Auckland, Northland and the Bay of Plenty had the biggest drops in median sale prices, down 16.4%, 21.7%, 16.6% and 18.8% respectively. Actually, the exception were three regions that saw marginal increases. Gisborne was up 3.8%, Taranaki up 0.8% and the West Coast up 5.3%. Those were the only regions to see a rise in median prices compared to January last year. Wellington now has 15 months in a row of being in the bottom two ranked regions, last 14 as worst ranked for the year-on-year HPI movement. And New Zealand, excluding Auckland, the Bay of Plenty and Wanganui, saw their largest year-on-year drops in HPI since records began. Auckland and the Nelson, Marlborough, Tasman, West Coast regions had their third largest year-on-year drops in HPI since records began. Taranaki is the top-rated HPI year-on-year movement this month, with Otago second and Southland third. The REINZ recorded 27,732 residential properties on the market at the end of January. That's up a huge 39.4% compared to a year earlier. For New Zealand, excluding Auckland, there was an annual increase of 55.9% or 17,781 properties. That massive increase in inventory was in spite of the number of new January listings declining by 16% compared to January last year. Essentially, there are more properties available for sale, but not much is selling. Nationally, new residential listings decreased 16% year over year, from 7,912 in January 2022 to 6,646 in January 2023. and that's an increase of 28.9 month on month from December 2022. New Zealand, excluding Auckland, saw a decrease of 10.4% year on year, from 5,512 in January 2022 to 4,635 new listings in January 2023, and a 29.4% decrease from 3,381 listings month on month from December 2022. Now, that is reflected in the average amount of time it takes to sell properties, which stretched out to 53 days in January, up 16 days compared to January last year. That's a huge increase, of course. January 2023, excluding the 2 lockdown-affected months of April 2020 and May 2020, had the highest median days to sell in Wellington since February 2009, New Zealand since February 2011, New Zealand excluding Auckland since May 2011, and Otago since July 2011. And nationally, just 3.7% or 101 properties were sold at auction in January 2023, compared to 14.1% or 532 in January 2022. New Zealand, excluding Auckland, saw 2.8% of properties or 35 selling by auction, compared to 1.6% the year prior. That was 162. So looking ahead, the figures suggest a grim outlook for the market ahead. And yet, of course, the REINZ chief, Jim Baird, said prices continue to ease, but the pace of decline is steadying, and the market has glimpses of new life, as January's seasonally adjusted data shows. Reports of more activity in the markets are growing. Agents in many areas are reporting more attendance at open homes, more interest online, and even more multi-offer situations. Inventory has increased 39.4%, now sitting at 27,732, which provides plenty of choice for buyers. Add to that, prices have eased over the last 12 months, and some less bad economic news is coming out recently. It seems that there are more buyers active in the market, so February and March data will tell us if they choose to act. So there's a couple of observations here. Of course, the interest rate situation in New Zealand has been higher, quicker, and for longer, and that up cycle may not be over yet. But the point is this, that we're starting to see now some distressed sales coming through in New Zealand. That's one of the reasons why the listings are quite high. Some people are now being forced to sell because of their financial circumstances having changed. And whilst hopefully Gabrielle will blow away quite quickly and recovery can start, my own perspective is that the property market in New Zealand will stay in a wrecked state for quite some time. After all, the Reserve Bank has not finished yet, and inflation is still not where it needs to be. So expect more difficulty in the New Zealand property market. And I've said several times, and I'll say it again, to my mind, New Zealand is leading Australia by a number of months. But we can perhaps read across to suggest that some of those falls that we're starting to see in Australia will follow the trends that we've seen in New Zealand in the last year or so. So unfortunately, property, I think, is going to continue to drift lower. The sales volumes will remain low. And as a result of that, we suspect some real estate agents will be out of a job. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.